Hey everyone, and welcome to the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. We're live here at Rivers Casino, Philadelphia, out by the Sportsbook with Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. Reuben, it was a nice weekend of just watching football.
Yeah, it was, and there were some great games. There were some fun games to watch. It's funny because Sunday was all. I never went to Red Zone Sunday because the games were really good. They were all AFC teams.
Yeah,
All three games that were on locally were obviously the Sunday night game, but they were all AFC games. Were really good games and good teams. And those are teams that we don't really get to see a lot. A couple of them, the Eagles are going to play soon. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Sunday was. We just don't. It sounds like a broken record. We just don't get that many opportunities to sit around and do nothing but watch football. So, it was a good weekend. A little mini bye for the team and a little mini bye for us, and get back going again today.
yeah, nice to get refreshed a little bit. We hope everyone enjoyed their weekend. We have a lot to get to today. We have questions coming up at the end. We have our updated top 10 power rankings in the NFL. We talked to all three coordinators on Tuesday morning, so we'll have some takeaways from that. We have our biggest concerns about this team. But I got to tell you, I got to start today. Did a lot of leaves this
Oh yeah.
weekend. Got the leaf blower out. Did my parents' house. Did my house. There's something very I don't enjoy it necessarily when I'm doing it. There's something very satisfying about looking at the big pile of leaves when you're done.
It's the same as cutting the grass. Like you hate it while you're doing it, but then you step back, you look at the pattern, and it's a good feeling.
Hmm.
Shoveling snow. I've got a long driveway, so I look at that thing. It doesn't really snow that much anymore, but you get a good snowstorm, and I'm like, you know what? We got 10 inches. I'm gonna just go out there and get this done, knock it out. I always take a before and after picture.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it? Is it? It's a little over the top, but yeah, I really enjoy shoveling snow.
Yeah, it was funny. I wanted to do a lot of the leaves on Saturday because Sunday I was like, I blocked off time for football here. Saturday was a little windy, so
It
there were a
was.
few times where I had the leaf blower out. You blow a big pile of leaves and they're in the air, and then a gust of wind comes and blows them right back at you. So there were some choice words from me on Saturday.
You're a little mad at the wind.
I was,
Oh.
yeah. Me and Jake Elliott. We'll get the field goals in a little bit.
How about that transition?
Man, but how about watching kickers around the league?
Yeah.
It was a weird kicking weekend. Jake Elliott just started us off on Thursday, but then you see Justin Tucker missing a couple. He's no longer the most accurate kicker in NFL history. Just a weird weekend for kickers.
Well, you know who? I don't know if he has enough attempts yet to qualify, but Cameron Dicker is the most accurate. I just don't think he has enough attempts, but he never misses.
Yeah, he's good.
He's unbelievable. But the guy with the Bengals missed like 6 of them, and cost him a game. But Eagles are lucky. Jake
Brandon
did.
Aubrey finally missed a kick.
Yeah, he slipped, but then he made a 61-yarder that ended up not counting, which is, that kind of sucks. It's one of the longest in Cowboys history. He's really good. But kicking is a weird deal because, and Michael Clay told us all along, when it gets colder, guys are going to start missing. And his words have, well, they bit him because his own kicker missed a couple.
Yeah, 3. Well, including the
Yeah.
BAT.
Count that.
Any big takeaways from watching football on Sunday?
I think my biggest takeaway is that the AFC is better than the NFC. I think there's a couple teams in the NFC, including this one, that are really good. But man, you look at the Chargers and the Steelers and the Ravens and the Bills and the Chiefs. I mean, these are really good teams. And like I was doing my rankings, and it's kind of hard to differentiate some. And the Eagles have a couple. They got the Steelers and the Ravens coming up. Those are tough games. And but I think the AFC, and I think it's been this way for a little while now. The Chargers defense, the Steelers defense, they just don't give up points. And there's some really really good teams in the AFC where I think the Eagles and Lions are really the only teams I would put in that mix. Like if you look at Super Bowl contenders, I think all but 2 of them I think are in the AFC.
Yeah, and I think that's good news if you're an Eagles fan because
You only have to play one of them.
yeah, the AFC is going to kind of eat itself on the way to the Super Bowl, and it doesn't mean the best team won't come out of there, but there are going to be some good teams left on the chopping block.
Yeah, no doubt. And we're not that far off from it, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean here we are. We're recording this on November 19th. We're getting there.
My birthday was very nice, by the way. It came during the mini bye.
Happy birthday!
Thank you. It was it was good timing. Had a little weekend off.
It's good.
Yeah.
Do anything special for it?
I just went out to dinner, and
Did AJ Brown get you a cake as well?
he did not. I was kind of hurt.
Yeah.
I was kind of hurt. I thought you might get me a cake, but I had
What if I just had one ready to go?
That would be
That would
impressive
be
since I
cool.
saw you walk in without a cake. But I was at a dinner and our old colleague and friend Sarah Baker, the server came over and said with a piece of paper and said, "Hey, Sarah Baker wants to buy a round of drinks."
Oh, that's fun.
So that was very nice of
Yeah.
her. So thank you, Sarah, so, our former hockey writer and Bob co-host, Breakfast on Broad. So yeah, it was a good weekend to have a birthday when I remember I used to always have to work. It was always either like I remember covering a state championship high school soccer game. It was like Vineland against like Elizabeth or something. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, but everybody has to work on their birthday at some point. But
Yeah.
yeah,
All right. Let's talk about this Eagles team a little bit.
Vineland won, by the way, 1-0.
They are 8-2. Things are going great. Obviously, 6 wins since the bye week. They're looking like a legitimate Super Bowl contender. I think they are a legitimate Super Bowl contender. But let's get a little negative here. To go a little
I'm always
Negadelphia.
up for that.
Yeah, let's do a little bit of it. And I think it's fair to go negative because you're trying to poke holes in this thing. You're trying to figure out if the Eagles, do falter at some point, why will they falter? You do that to try to get ahead of it, right? So when you look at this team right now, give me one concern you have with it and why it's a concern for you.
Well, I think my biggest concern is still the pass rush because, they had a couple really good games there, mainly the Browns and the Giants, and it's gotten a little better, but it's still not as consistent as I think it should be. I think it needs to be. We've seen signs of life from Nolan Smith over the last 5 weeks or so. Josh Sweat's been better. So individually, and we even saw Bryce Huff make a play, but as a group, it's just still not where I think it needs to be. And you look at Matt Stafford. I think 4 of the last 5 games he hasn't been sacked. He doesn't get sacked much. So I just feel like to be an elite team, you've got to you got to get consistent pressure on quarterbacks, and they've done it at times, and they haven't done, which I guess means they haven't done it consistently. So that's still a concern of mine. I've seen, I think it's better than it was, but still not there yet.
Yeah, you might be right. And we're so used to this team having dominant pass rushers. Even recently with Hassan Reddick, they're missing that presence of just a guy that you can rely on to give you that kind of production. Obviously, if Bryce Huff was able to produce more and play more, that would really help this thing. But you're right. Like individually, they're getting good contributions from Josh Sweat and
What's he got, 6 in his last 7 games, maybe? Yeah.
Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter, obviously inside, has been doing some really good things. Milton Williams here and there. Moro Ojima has been giving them some pressure inside. But you're right; it's probably not top end. It's kind of it's taking some getting used to watching this defense because the formula has changed a little bit. Like for so many years, when the Eagles had a good defense, it was led by this elite pass rush to help the back end. But now it's like an elite back end is helping the pass rush a little bit, which is a different way to do it. Not the way we're used to, but it's working, and it can work.
Yeah, and I would think with I think they have the number 2 pass defense in the league. I think Tennessee's just ahead of them, but I feel like with this pass defense, there should be more opportunities for coverage sacks.
And we've seen some.
We've seen some.
I mean, the Brandon Graham one from the Washington game was definitely a coverage sack.
It was. But the way they're covering, I'd like to see more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. My biggest concern right now is whether or not this passing offense can flip a switch. We're in we're week 12 now, and it's been a little too sporadic. They've hit some big plays. That's been there for them. Jalen Hurts over the top to A.J. Brown. We see that quite a bit. But consistently on like a down-the-down basis, they haven't been able to get much cooking in the passing game. They've relied on this great running attack, and that's great. And I'm fine with that being the formula for now. But when they've needed the passing attack to be there, it just hasn't been consistent enough. And that's something that, all of us, I think, want to believe that they can flip this switch because they have all these great players. But I don't know. It's mid to late November right now, and they haven't been able to consistently find that.
Yeah, and at some point they're going to need to, and there's going to be games where they're going to have. I mean, like the Browns game, Jim Schwartz had a really good scheme. They couldn't run, and they didn't do a whole lot in the pass game. They barely won against a bad team in chaos. There's going to be games over the next couple months, and you would hope beyond where they're going to have to. I think in Kellen Moore's words this afternoon or this morning, they're going to have to sling it. I'm just not sure they can do that. It's interesting. They're number 22 in passing yards per game, but they're number 7 in passing yards per pass play. So I think that's a reflection of the big plays, which they've hit more of than any team in the league. And those are great, but yeah, like you said, to be a consistent passing offense, you need to do more than just hit big plays because you might hit one of those a game.
And it's kind of telling that like when they need a big play, they're going deep over the top, which is not typically the way this is done. It's worked for them because it is like a much higher percentage play when you have AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts throwing him that ball. But you'd like to be able to see them manufacture a little bit more in the passing game, and some of that I think it kind of plays into these slow starts that we've seen.
Yeah.
I think there has to be a way to get Jalen Hurts in rhythm a little earlier than we're seeing him get in rhythm right now.
Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to. And he's been a really slow starter, which hasn't been his MO earlier in his career. So something they have to look at.
All right, what's next for you?
Well, it's Jalen and just his specifically. We've seen him devolve into some bad habits as far as pocket presence, ball security. Um, you know, last week was better. I thought the Dallas game was an issue. You see him running into traffic. You see him running into sacks, holding on to the ball too long, and it's tied into what you were just saying. But it's just a very specific thing, and I think Jalen's overall had a pretty good stretch since the bye. He's thrown one interception in 6 games, and he's been accurate. The numbers have been gaudy, but you just like to see him be a little more aware in the pocket, and it's something that we've seen kind of bubble over at times in his career, especially last month of last season. It was really a problem, and a lot of last season. He didn't seem as, I guess, his court awareness, whatever you want to call it. So I think that's something that it's going to be a constant, struggle for him or constant work for him, and he's just got to get better at it.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing with him because sometimes he nails it, and other times it's like he's never done it before, and it's like a little frustrating to watch sometimes.
Yeah, and I think it comes from wanting to do too much, and it goes into like there's nothing wrong with like a 6-yard pass on 1st and 10. You got a 2nd and 4. But you just don't see that enough. Just, you know what? I mean, we're starting to see Saquon more and more involved in the passing game. It's been mainly long balls or a short ball that he takes a long way. But I'd like to see him get 4 targets, 3, 4, 5 targets a game because I just think he can. And obviously he's had a drop issue, and he's never been super secure with the ball. But he's such a weapon in the passing game, and on running downs, if you throw it to him, I just think you're guaranteed to get like 6 yards. He could just catch it and fall down and get you 6 yards.
Okay, my last one is Nick Sirianni, who's done a pretty good job recently of not making himself the story, but I am still concerned that he's going to screw up a game management situation in a big game. And really, I go back to the Super Bowl. Like that year, no one was really questioning his role and what he was doing, but man, I did not like the way he coached in the Super Bowl. I thought he was too conservative. So I think that's always going to be in the back of my mind. Nothing they can really do to fix that one right now. That's his responsibility. That's his job. Which, I talked about these concerns, stuff like that you want to get ahead of. I don't know if you can really get ahead of this one, but it is on my mind.
Yeah, and it's not just him. I mean, whoever's upstairs advising him, look, this is 4th and 6 inches. Let's not get too fan. I mean, it's not just him. It's got to be the staff too, helping him make what looks on the outside as obvious decisions. But he has been better. You see some of the stuff around the league. I mean, Matt Eberflus like leaving all that time on the clock, and maybe you get like 6, 8 yards on a play, the kick probably doesn't get blocked.
But even like Nick against the Commanders at the end of the half, like leaving them too much time, like they invited a potential field goal.
Yeah,
and they're lucky that Commanders weren't able to. I think there was a pass that got, I think got overturned. I think they called it like that almost puts them in field goal range.
Right.
Like just little things like that when the games matter more. There's a little more emphasis on it.
Sure.
Okay, that's fun.
Yeah.
But in general, like I think we both agree, this team's in a really good position. We're nitpicking.
Yeah, and I don't even
out
look
of
at it.
need for the podcast.
I don't even look at it as negatives. I think every team has things to work on.
Sure, there's not a perfect team out
There's
there.
not a team out there, whether it's the Bills, the Chiefs, the Lions. Everybody can get better somewhere. So they're not alone in that.
Okay, we talked to Vic Fangio, Kellen Moore, and Michael Clay on Tuesday. Let's just kind of talk about some big takeaways from those guys, starting with Vic Fangio, who, by the way, has an NFL on Fox hat on his head when we walk in there today. Love that. Obviously a free hat. Nothing wrong with that.
He was asked, how free was that hat? I didn't know there was degrees of free. But, yeah, I'd been wanting to ask him about Jim Johnson because I just think there's so many similarities between the two of them, their personality, a little sarcastic sense of humor. Obviously, they both came into bad situations and got things turned around. They're both they've both coached Hall of Famers, like really closely associated. I mean, Sam Mills and, with Vic and Doc, Aeneas Williams with Jim Johnson. But even their names, like they're 3 letters, consonant, vowel, consonant. But I was fascinated I did a little research. Like they've never worked on the same staff. They've never worked for the same coach. But in the mid 80s, they were both coaching in the USFL and their teams played each other. So they go back like almost 40 years. Obviously, Jim's older. Jim was older. But I asked Vic about him, and he said that they did have a what do you call it, a professional friendship. They would talk on the phone about mutual opponents, or if they had an opponent coming up that the other team had played, they would talk on the phone. And I was happy to hear that. I like that.
Yeah, it's fun too because like very different stylistically.
Yeah.
In terms of like what kind of defense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Jim was a big blitzer, but and also the game has changed, as Vic said. So there's not a lot because I was curious if there's anything anything of Jim's he took. He said he didn't remember, but it was
which is fair. That was
it was a long time ago. But I think one of the reasons Vic has had success is because he's been able to adjust as the game has changed. Jim did that as well. It hadn't changed as much. But yeah, I thought it was pretty cool that they had a relationship. They would talk on the phone, and certainly there was a lot of respect for each other. I think that's pretty cool because, I mean, Bud Carson, notwithstanding, these are 2 of the best defensive coaches Eagles have ever had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And Vic is right now he has the number 1 defense in the league by yards per game.
And they were 30 last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's and certainly Howie has a hand in that, bringing these guys in, but I think Vic's done just a remarkable job.
And then you got to also credit Matty P. He primed them. He got them ready for the next season. Like there were roots underground. they needed to sprout up this year.
We're going back there. Matty's done a good job this year. He doesn't have any losses.
What else from Vic Fangio stood out today? He talked about Jalen Carter a little bit. Kind of funny. He was getting a lot of questions about Jalen playing every snap, and he goes, he plays 90% or 100 snaps. What the hell's the difference? Which I get it, but it is such a rare thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Fletcher Cox played 12 years, most of those at a Pro Bowl level, and never did that.
And played more snaps than any interior lineman a lot of those years.
Yeah.
And he never did it. So, and I think it's really significant because there were so many questions about Jalen Carter's fitness coming into the league, and even last year, and he's answered those. I mean, he's in great shape.
Fitness and commitment and all those things. Yeah. And he does play with such a high motor that it's like it is in a way more impressive that he's able to play all these snaps.
Really
he's
is.
not taking them off.
No, that's for sure. And again, I mean, he might not be getting the sacks, forced fumbles, but he's playing at a all-pro level. Mm-hmm. He's so good. I mean, he's just so disruptive on every play. He's fun to watch. There's a really short list of guys that are, like who's fun to watch. It's usually quarterbacks, receivers, running backs. I mean, he's an interior lineman that's just flat out fun to just kind of, settle the binoculars on him and just watch him.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly disruptive. that get off was working on a few of those plays on Thursday, and he finds himself in the backfield pretty quick on some of those plays.
He's so much better against the run than he was last year. And like he would get washed out sometimes. That could be fitness thing too. Um, there's some running plays that I mean, like the back doesn't even have. He's not like even like in gear yet, and he's just flattens them. I mean, he's just there. It's special.
There's something about the way he penetrates and then gets square again that's unique. Because like we think of penetration on a defensive line about like getting after the quarterback, but so many of his big plays are getting in and either making the tackle for loss or disrupting the run play. He's able to like get square again after he gets through the line, which
Yeah.
I think is pretty unique.
Yeah, yeah. He's a good one, and he's just only going to get better.
Some complimentary words for Nolan Smith
Yeah.
from Vic Fangio. Just talked about what it takes as a smallish edge rusher to be able to hold up against the run the way Nolan has. I mean, Nolan Smith, he's a starter. He's quietly just become a starter for this team. Bryce Huff is more of the situational guy. Nolan Smith, I think, has started the last 3 games and 4 of the last 5.
For the last 5. And yeah, I think he's got a really rare. Usually, those smaller edges are guys that just get sacks and just they're not physical and they're not helping against the run. He's both those things. You worry a little bit about him getting hurt at that size, playing that style of football, but he's having a good year. And the first month, I thought it was a little slow to come, maybe. But again, I guess it's since the bye, like all these other guys, he's been really good. 3.5 sacks, I think, in the last 6 games. It's not Pro Bowl production, but I think when you combine what he's done against the run with the pressure, I like where he's at.
Yeah, and 3.5 was his career high in a single season in college.
Yeah, didn't get a big number of sacks, and he does other things. That's what you usually say about guys that aren't getting sacks. Well, he does other stuff, but he really does.
Mm-hmm. No, he really does, and he's just kind of plays with that effort all the time. Kind of has BG effort.
Yeah.
I think there are some similarities between them in their play styles.
Yeah, I definitely agree. What would you say is a good number? Like if he can finish with 7,
Yeah, you take that.
you take that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That'll be another 3.5 in 7 games. He can do that.
Yeah.
The way he's playing.
Anything else from Vic?
Talked about Jordan Davis. We're doing all the Georgia guys.
Yeah.
We didn't ask about Nakobe or Keeley, but yeah, Jordan Davis. And we haven't talked much about him. Consider where he was picked, I guess he's been disappointing. He has been disappointing, but he's been solid. He's playing well. He's not a liability, and he's gotten better. And again, he's still kind of I mean, as long as you see progress, you'll take that. And should they have taken him with the 13th pick? No. But he's playing well.
Yeah, and we've talked so much about the great linebacker play this year. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
Like, he's making their lives a lot easier. He's taking on 2 blockers. He's freeing them up to make plays. So, yeah, I think that he's playing well. We're not seeing that ceiling that everyone hoped for when they moved up in that draft to take him. But, yeah, it's not like he's a weak spot on that line or anything.
No. And there's so much talent around him that he just has to be good, and he has been.
Anything else from Vic? I think that's good.
I think that covers it.
How about Kellen Moore? A lot of the questions to Kellen Moore were about the complexion of the run-pass ratio and how that works. We talked about it a little bit earlier when we mentioned the pass offense, but I give him so much credit for sticking with the run, even when it's not working, because they have the offensive line and the running back to make it work.
Yeah, and he brought it up in the Browns game as the one game where they kept doing it, and they never broke one. But I like that they kept doing it. Mm-hmm. And Saquon had more yards in the last 5 minutes of that game Thursday night than in the first 55 minutes. And if you keep giving him the ball 90% of the time, it's going to pay off in the long run. And how many coaches have you seen who won't do that? And I think that's huge. When you have a talent like Saquon, I mean, I did a story on his first half. He's averaging 4.2 yards per carry in the first half, below average. Like the NFL, he's like, I think he's 18th out of 28 guys with however many carries but in the first half. In the second half, he's averaging 7.2. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, he just gets better and better as the game goes on. And if you're Kellen Moore, you know that, you understand it, and you embrace it, and you just keep dialing him up. And I just think the O-line has a big part to do with that because they're wearing the D-line down. And then by the fourth quarter, by the middle of the fourth quarter, you have such a mismatch because that D-line has been out there a long time. They're worn out, and all of a sudden one cutback and Saquon's gone. And we saw it twice the other day, and we've seen it throughout the year. I mean, he's got 9 of his 10 longest runs this year have been in the second half, and 6 of those 9 have been in the fourth quarter. So you need a play caller who really believes in the player and trusts the player and trusts the O-line, and he's got that. It's working great.
Yeah, and the flip side of that is like, all right, now we got to see how defenses adjust. They're going to start loading the box on them, and that's when you really need the pass offense to be able to do its job. That's why you've been setting up all these play action plays the last few weeks. It can work.
Yeah, and Jordan Mailata was saying we feel like we can run it against a stacked box. I think late in games they can. I mean, some of those plays, the defense knows they're going to run it, and they still can't stop them. But when you face that kind of box, you have to make plays in the passing game. And the thing I asked Kellen was about when you're running it 40 times, and over the last 6 games, you're averaging over 40 carries per game. There's not a lot of pass plays, and you have a lot of guys who want the ball. 3 who really need the ball, AJ and Devontae in Dallas, and they're just not going to get the numbers that they want, and that's a tricky thing to navigate as a coach. 45, 50 running plays a game doesn't leave a whole lot for the receivers, but if it's a formula that's working for the team, you can't get away from it. So you just need guys that are going to not get carried away with their frustration and remain team guys, and it's not an easy thing to deal with.
Yeah. He also gave a nice little tip of his cap to Jordan Mailata playing on a week with no practice.
Yeah.
Really impressive stuff. That he played every snap.
Yeah. And to come off IR, and I mean, they opened his practice window. I mean, he never practiced. They opened his practice window after that, as soon as they could, after 21 days, and then he played in his first game. So he never practiced. He played great. I don't know if it's too late for him to get any postseason honors. He missed a lot of time, but what a player. And
it's such a luxury I shouldn't even say it's a luxury because they've invested the resources, but to have Lane and Jordan Mailata and just have 2 bookend tackles like that you don't have to help, you can keep them on islands. It just opens up so much of the playbook that other teams. That's something that stands out when you're watching play around the league. Like other offenses don't have that.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, you watch like the end of that Cowboys game, and they just couldn't block anybody. They had some injuries, but yeah, we see some really bad O-line play and just young kids who were rushed into having to play. I remember 2019, Jordan's second year, and he still hadn't played. He was on IR both those first 2 years with like back injuries. Mm-hmm. And I remember like talking to, it might have been you in a locker room, just like, is he ever going to play? Like, is this ever going to be a thing? And you look at him now, and it's nobody better. He's the best left tackle in football, I think.
Okay. He's one of.
If he's not there, he's
close.
Really close.
He's very close. Yeah. Michael Clay. I missed Michael Clay last week. We get to talk to him on the short week.
Yeah.
So a lot of questions today about Jake Elliott and those 3 misses, 2 on field goals, 1 in the PAT. Clay said, in a way, you feel better about the misses because it wasn't like, he said, you look at the spray chart, and it's not like all the misses were all over. They were all the same. They were wide left, so it's, at least in theory, more correctable.
Yeah, and I really like talking to Michael Clay for that kind of stuff. He's very detailed. You can ask him about a play. Somebody asked him. You asked him about the Cooper DeJean return, the cut across the field.
I've been sitting on that question for a week.
And man, he went into really good detail about it, and I thought it was really insightful stuff about puncturing. About as long as you move forward at the beginning and puncture their core group coming up, then that gives you the luxury of doing it. If you don't do that, you're going to get probably an 8-yard loss or something. So that was really good info. I enjoy talking to Michael Clay, but yeah, he didn't seem overly concerned with Jake Elliott. Um, and I see his point. Like if all 3 kicks that he missed wide left, and he said it's a simple adjustment, and he'll make it, and he'll make kicks. And I'm I'm concerned, but not overly concerned.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone deserves the benefit of the doubt, it's probably Jake Elliott. You're allowed to have one bad game.
Yeah, and he's been so good for so long. Now he's got 5 misses this year, plus the PAT. So he hasn't made a kick over 50, and he was a 73% 50-yard kicker coming into the season. So now a lot of it is just what opportunities are you getting. Over 50 could mean 57s and 58s, but guys make those now at over 50%. And the one he missed was a 51 on Thursday, so and a 44. So those are concerning. But you kind of, I'm sure he's out there. And Michael said he was out. He came out on Monday and was kicking a little bit, which their team was off. No, he didn't have to do that. So I'm sure he'll be confident going into the Rams game, and you kind of hope that he's got to make a big kick and kind of get his confidence back.
Yeah. That's all I have for Michael Clay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's take a break, and then on the other side, we'll get into our top 10 power rankings and a bunch of questions from you guys.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store at nissanusa.com today.
Celebrity cook Steve Martorano brings his Italian-American cooking back home to Philly. Enjoy Martorano's Prime at Rivers Casino and Steve's famous meatballs with Sunday gravy, prime steaks, and more. Make reservations at Martorano's Prime on Open Table.
All right, we're back on the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan Live here at Rivers Casino, Philadelphia, out by the Sportsbook. Reuben, it's time for our top 10 power rankings across the NFL. Let's get into it. I think number 1 has fallen. We both had the Chiefs at number 1 last week. They finally lose a football game. Been a long time.
Yeah.
Who's the number 1 team in the NFL?
I was torn between the Lions and the Bills. And I actually was sitting waiting for them to unlock this room, and I saw on that TV right there, they said the Lions are 5-0 against winning teams. I think the Bills are really, really good. I think it's very close, but I went Lions. And Lions are 9-1. They've won 8 in a row now. But the Bills are playing great. They're 9-2, and they've won 6 in a row. So I went Lions number 1.
Yeah, so did I. Lions 1, Bills 2.
Yeah.
What'd you do with 3?
I knocked the Chiefs down to 3. They're still 9-1.
Same.
I don't think it's a great Chiefs team, but they find ways to win. Their offense certainly isn't what it used to be. We'll see if they get Pacheco back soon, but yeah, I went Chiefs 3.
All right. Are we just gonna be boring and have the same top 10?
I hope not.
Who's 4?
I went Eagles 4.
Eagles 4. Man, what if we picked the same top 10?
Well, I don't think we did.
Okay.
I think the next 2, I think we're going to have different. Who'd you have? Let's do 5 and 6 together. Who are your 5 and 6?
I have Steelers, Ravens.
Okay, I have Steelers, Chargers.
Okay.
Yeah, I really like the way that the Chargers are playing. The Ravens are very good.
I had trouble knocking. The Ravens have trouble with the Steelers. They just do. I'm not going to knock them down too far.
That was a great game. The Ravens have 4 losses. They're all by they're all by 1 possession. I think it's like 7-4, 2-1. They've been in every game. But the Chargers, I mean, they've got that defense is humming, and their quarterback is playing really well. I'm not a huge Jim Harbaugh fan. We're talking about Jim Harbaugh versus John Harbaugh here, by the way. Ravens versus Chargers.
I have the Chargers at 8.
Yeah. So I went Chargers 6, Ravens 7, Vikings 8.
Okay, I went Ravens 6, Vikings 7, Chargers 8.
Okay.
So we're all in the same vicinity there.
Yeah. I was just really impressed with the Chargers. It was to give up 21 straight points and then kind of regroup and gather yourself and win the game. It was another fun game, but yeah. Well, so we got the same 3, 6 through 8. Now, who's your 9?
My 9 is the Packers.
Same.
Yeah.
We're going to have to stop doing this. We're too similar.
It didn't. I mean,
I think our 10 is different.
they won a game, but they barely beat the Bears, and the
Yeah.
Bears had more field goal issues.
Yeah. They are 5-1 in their last 6. Their only loss in that span is to the Lions, and it was a competitive game. So, Packers are dangerous. Now, who's your 10?
My 10 is the Commanders.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to go with either Commanders or the Cardinals. I think the Commanders are trending down,
Yeah, they definitely are.
and
But I still have them. The Cardinals didn't have a game.
they won
this
4
week of a
straight though.
bye. Yeah.
And you give Gannon a bye, he's going to have that group. It's fun because they've been so bad for so long. Not that long. I mean, they were good 2021.
So do you have the Cardinals at 10?
I had the Cardinals at 10. Yeah, that's
Okay.
what
Look
I'm
at
saying.
them moving up on a bye week.
Yeah,
Good for them.
yeah. So so we have a few different.
Yeah, there are a few other teams I thought about. Like the Rams are getting a little hotter now, but they're still just 5-5. They're obviously a different team with their 2 receivers in. We'll talk about that later in the week.
Yeah.
But they're a completely different team when they have Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when the Eagles don't have AJ and Devontae.
Mm-hmm.
It's who you throw to. So that's a tough game coming. Eagles' schedule doesn't get easier. It's the next up until that I mean that Panthers game will be a nice little break, you would think. But yeah, I mean at Baltimore is never easy, and going across the country is never easy. I had a story. I think it ran today. Eagles have they're 21-9 on the road under Nick, which is I actually thought it was the best record, but I included the Brazil game, which technically is
It's a home game.
It's a home game. I even tried to count it as a neutral game, but StatHead considers it only Super Bowl's neutral games. It's not a neutral game, so the Chiefs are still half a game ahead of them, as far as. But 21-9 is, and 4 straight with one more win, they'll clinch 4 straight winning records on the road. They're a really good road team, and I think they lost 3 of their first 5 or 6 under Nick. So since the middle of 21, they've been very tough to beat on the road. So just something to consider going into this little stretch.
Yeah, last year in LA, there were a ton of Eagles fans in those stands at SoFi.
I think that makes a difference.
It definitely makes.
I really do. Nick was talking, and he said, you still feel like everyone's against you, but it's nice to have, have a bunch of Eagles fans there.
I mean, Eagles fans have made teams go to a silent count in their home stadium.
What's the biggest Eagles fan presence you've ever seen? Any game stand out?
Yeah, the Chargers game in 17 at that soccer
Oh,
stadium. Yeah.
Cal State, San Dominguez Hills. Cal State, Dominguez Hills. That's where we were.
The stadium?
That's the college campus we were on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Cal State, Dominguez Hills. I'll never forget a Monday night game in Miami. It was the game Carell Buckhalter had that incredible falling backwards, curling the ball around the pylon play, touchdown. There had to be 30,000 Eagles fans there. It was insane. And with like 4 minutes left, there was a real crazy back and forth game, like 8 lead changes. So the Eagles get the ball back like down 3 with like 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And Joe Robbie Stadium, they start playing the Rocky theme song. I'm like, what are they doing?
Crazy.
And everyone's like singing, and all these Eagles fans are going crazy. And they drove down, scored, and won the game. And I will never forget that. I've never seen more Eagles fans at a road game.
Yeah, I mean, the last few years it's been really impressive.
Yeah.
And I get to see it on these flights to whatever place. Like you start to sense it in the airport. That,
Yeah.
Okay, there's a lot of fans going to this game.
Yeah.
And it helps when it's in like a good spot. Like Tampa is always a good one. LA is always a good one. New Orleans is always a good one. Like these are destinations that make sense for people to plan a weekend around.
Yeah.
But they show up. It does matter.
Yeah. I think Tampa is huge just because so many Philly sports fans are familiar with it and like it from Philly's spring training. It's a fun place to go. I'll never forget my flight from Newark to London for the Jaguars game in 2018, and we're on our climb out, and they're like, as soon as we reach our comfortable, and there's like 200 Eagles fans on this flight. As soon as we reach our comfortable cruising altitude, there'll be a limited amount of alcohol served, and spontaneously everybody on the plane just started laughing. It was such a uniquely Eagles fan moment.
I had a really funny one on my flight to Dallas. I took an early flight. I think it was like a 6:30 a.m. flight to Dallas. So we landed. I'm groggy. I know most of the people on the plane are probably a little groggy. This poor guy in front of me tried to start an Eagles chant, and no one really joined because everyone's
Really?
like, I think there were other Eagles fans, but they were like, everyone's kind of out of it, man. We just took a 6:30 flight,
Yeah.
and he just powered through it.
Really?
Yeah, by himself.
Where were we? Were we in Nashville when we got like some historical site? We're at the where were we when we're like
Hermitage. Yeah.
we're at the Hermitage, and like all of a sudden there's like, hey, we love Eagle Eye podcast. Like they're everywhere.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
All right, let's get into some questions from you guys. If you have a question for us, it's eagle-eye at NBCUni. That's NBCUNI.com. First one here is from Andrew, first-time emailer, long-time listener of the pod. I live in Red Bank, New Jersey, always surrounded by New York sports media.
Love Red
So
Bank. There's a great Irish pub in the middle of Red Bank there.
So your pod and weekly stories are a great way to stay connected to the team. My question, next weekend is the last time the Eagles board a plane during the regular season. In your mind, who will benefit most from the minimal travel? Keep up the great work.
Guess the pilot. He's off.
I think he's probably flying other people.
You think he's not just the Eagles pilot?
That'd be a great gig. You only fly a few times a year.
Who's going to benefit the most? I don't know. I can't answer that. I mean, I guess the obvious answer is, I mean, linemen are probably a little more uncomfortable.
Yeah, the big guys.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I haven't
Okay.
really thought about it in those terms.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general it's just a nice thing to have. Even though you mentioned it, they have been very good on the road. To know you don't need to board a plane is nice.
Yeah. For you too.
It's funny. It's like, well, yeah, for me too. But in a way, like, it's great for the guys with kids, but like they're also going to have to manage their lives a little bit more.
Yeah.
In a way, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it.
All right, next one is from Mike, Dave, and Rube. Is it possible that Jake Elliott is coming in to kick too cold since he's only on the field for field goals and extra points and not kickoffs? Probably just a coincidence, but
Yeah, I don't think that's affecting him. I don't think that's what it is. I don't think he missed wide left by a foot because he wasn't kicking off. No, I think he's just got something to work out as far as how he's striking the ball and his angle, and yeah.
what about kickoffs aside? The fact that Nick has been going for it, hasn't given Jake a ton of reps.
I mean, they kick a lot in practice. He kicks before the game. I think when you're looking for a reason, those are convenient little things. But I just think he missed some kicks.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. Mike has another question. Is it possible that Howie will start to value even a little bit the running back and linebacker positions, given that the arguable MVPs of the season so far are running back and linebacker? Of course, it has to be the right guys, but when you have those guys, like this season, it's proving to be a highly productive additive on both sides of the ball.
I think it's a great question. I mean, he went outside the. I mean, he didn't pay Zach Bond, but they drafted N'Kobe in the third round, which was kind of out of character. I think it will. I mean, he's got to make a decision about Zach Bond and what his value is. All of a sudden, he's going to go from close to minimum wage to, I don't know, 12, 15. I don't know what he's going to make, $1 million, but I think so. And I think Zach Bond is such a playmaker at that position that you have to look at the production and just kind of get away from the we don't pay linebackers thing. I think he's going to have to.
Yeah. So I think with the running back, the whole reason they went after Saquon was they thought they found a market inefficiency. It turns out they were right, and they thought, okay, we can pay this guy what we would pay a third receiver and get that much more production out of him. So I think that was wise. At linebacker, I think it's possible because we know Vic Fangio isn't going anywhere, which is kind of the beauty of having a 66-year-old defensive coordinator.
But he's also, I mean, how much longer is he going to want to do it?
Sure, but the point is he's not going to leave for a head coaching gig. So I would think at least
Right.
a few more years he'll want to do this.
Yeah.
We know he values linebacker. And, on defense right now, think about their best players and how much they're paying them. Quignon's on a rookie deal. Cooper DeJean's on a rookie deal. Jalen Carter's on a rookie deal. You're going to have to pay some of these guys at a certain point, but that they're not paying an edge rusher crazy money. Maybe they will by next season. But like right now, like the big money positions on defense, they're not spending. Like Slay gets paid a ton, but we're kind of nearing the end of his time.
Yeah, I mean, the offense, the highest paid guys on this team are almost all on offense.
Does that free up the ability to pay a linebacker somewhat significant money?
I would think so. Yeah.
Okay. Next question here.
And like if you say, look, Howie, you got a guy who has an interception, 6 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 4 fumble recoveries, 3 forced fumbles, and he's a safety. Oh yeah, we'll sign him. Or if he's a edge, when you say he's a linebacker, it's all about the production. And I think you don't let guys like that go.
Next question from John. In today's NFL, would Saquon or any non-quarterback, what would they have to do to win the MVP? With a seeming resurgence of starting running backs, Christian McCaffrey the last few years, and now Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley this year, it seems time for that position to get its due. Do you ever think we'll see a running back win it again?
It needs to be really hard. I mean, voters well, I'm one of the voters. I would vote. I mean, it's a little early to be thinking about it, but I wouldn't hesitate to vote for him if I thought he deserved it. I think most of the voters are just going to go best quarterback. It's just how they think. I mean, I saw the favorites are with Josh Allen and Lamar. Lamar didn't have a great game, but I mean, Saquon Barkley's meant as much to the Eagles as any player has meant to their team. So I would consider it. I just don't think. I think Adrian Peterson was the last one.
Yep, 2012.
In 2012. And the ones that have. I mean, Sean Alexander, I think, won it. Didn't he win it the one year? His one monster year, like 1,800 yards.
Yeah, he won it in 2005. In 2006 was
Falk won it one year, maybe.
Okay, yeah. Falk won it in 2000. 2006 was LaDainian Tomlinson.
Yeah. And then AP?
AP.
So AP's the only one in the last 18 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's not easy, and I think it's going to keep getting harder. That position is just looked at differently than quarterbacks. It's just the reality.
Yeah, Josh Allen is now the favorite to win MVP.
He's incredible.
He moved ahead of Lamar Jackson. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
Now early in the season, like Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, thought maybe they'll split votes, and then Saquon can sneak in there. The problem is Saquon is going to split votes with Jalen. Even if Jalen's not playing great, he's still the quarterback on a team that's very good.
Yeah, I don't think Jalen's going to get a whole. I mean, Jalen's numbers overall are fine, and he had a good stretch, but he hasn't had any of those 4 touchdowns. I mean, 2 rushing, 2 passing, maybe,
yeah.
But I think the voters are going to look at how many 300-yard games, how many 4 touchdown games.
Maybe, but maybe we're also too close for it because looking at the odds, his odds are tremendously shorter than Saquon's.
Interesting. Yeah,
I have him at plus 1,700. Saquon's at plus 6,500.
Wow. Yeah, interesting.
But we see it every day, and I think clearly, if we had to pick an MVP of this team, it'd be Barkley.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of things have to go right. You have to have not a clear winner at the quarterback position,
right.
And it has to be a really special year.
Yeah. Well,
and as much as it stinks for Saquon, all those touchdowns he's not getting, it shouldn't factor in as much. But when you look at the numbers at the end of the year, it probably does factor in.
Still has 8 in 10 games. It's a good number.
Sure, but I mean, he could have
15.
Yeah, he's been tackled at the 1-yard line 9 times.
I saw that. Did you see Ian Rappaport broke down his incentives?
Mm-hmm.
It was a good piece, worth checking out. And he has no touchdown incentives because of that, which is smart.
Very smart. Next question from a different John. How happy do you think Tampa and Atlanta are that they face this team early in the season? How do you feel either would be feeling ahead of a potential playoff meeting with the Eagles?
Atlanta's pretty good. Tampa would be. Imagine playing Tampa again, 3rd time in 4 years. I wouldn't want to do that.
No, I don't think Jalen Hurts would want to do that.
No, Todd Bowles would want to do that. Although the game would be here as opposed to there. The first 2 were there. I think they played them 5 times in the postseason. Tampa. It's funny. It's just funny to me how the first couple of weeks of the season, we thought the Saints were really, wow, that was a great win. They beat the Saints. Next thing you know, they're firing their coach. They stink. They can't win. Um, yeah, I think it's a little early for that question, but I don't think people really want to play. Tampa might be different. I don't think people want to play the Eagles. I mean, they don't have any weaknesses.
Yeah.
Oh, we just identified a few, but they're a really good team on both sides of the ball, and I wouldn't want to play them.
Yeah, I think they're the second best team in the NFC.
Yeah,
I don't
clearly.
think it's particularly close after that.
Agree.
Next is from Jack. Hey guys, love the show. Quick thought: with all the talk last week about the blinding sunshine at AT&T Stadium and mention of the pickle juice game from Texas Stadium, I went back and watched the highlights from the pickle juice game on YouTube. What struck me was the Eagles sideline was in the shade. That has to have been more impactful in performance than pickle juice, no? We know for a fact that the Dolphins bake their opposition on a sunny sideline. Could it be possible that Jerry was putting the Cowboys at a consistent disadvantage by having them in the scalding sunshine during hot weather games as far back as the 90s? Their 90s record might not necessarily reflect it given the talent disparity, but there's no way you can have your team in the sunshine when it's 110 on the field.
I don't remember that, and obviously that was the old stadium. It was Texas Stadium. I don't remember that, but I mean, you can't keep changing sides. Like you have to have a home side and a visiting side.
It is very funny though to think about Jerry's biggest battle over the last 3 decades has been against the sun.
Who's the second biggest against?
Himself.
He's such a clown. He was saying in an interview I saw early this morning on, I don't even remember where, NFL Network maybe, how, we haven't been to a Super Bowl in 30 years, but like our regular season record is like 6th best in the NFL since then. So, we're in the mix every year.
I was really proud.
I think that's a good thing that you have all these good regular season records and then stink it up in the postseason. That's not something to brag about.
I was really proud. I had a joke on Twitter Friday. I don't expect you to understand the reference, but there was the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight that I watched knowing it was going to be bad. There was a very funny moment where Mike Tyson gets interviewed and then walks away bare bum on the Netflix stream, and it was at AT&T Stadium, the fight.
Oh.
So my tweet was, Jerry did ask where the moon was. It was good. I was proud of that.
That's good.
Yeah. Topical, tied it all in
Yeah.
together. All right, next
I
question
don't get it.
from Ryan. I told you would get it. From Ryan.
I did get it.
Number 1, Jalen Hurts struggled to pick up the blitz and at time was downright awful against it in 2023. He is now one of the best in the league against the blitz, and it showed against Washington. What do you think has contributed to this improvement? Overall scheme, better play design, or an offseason focus of how to improve in this area?
I think all of the above. I think Kellen Moore's made a big difference. He's given him answers. There's usually somebody when he's blitzed. There's usually a hot, and there's usually somebody underneath who he can dump it off to. I think he's still not as willing to take that throw as he should be, and because he's just thinking deep all the time. And when you're blitzed, unless it's completely neutralized, that's not a good throw. So I think it's all the above, but I think I think when your coach has given you answers, it really makes a big difference. And it obviously was something they really worked hard on.
Yeah, clearly they worked hard on it. I think having Kellen in here, giving him some more answers has been helpful. But I also think just going through it more, like having these reps under your belt, like all that matters. It's you haven't seen it until you've seen it. You know what I mean? It's like you got to go through these things to get better from it.
Yeah.
And he's gone through it a little bit. There was a bonus question from Ryan. If Rube had to pick one song and listen to only one song forever, which one would you pick?
One song and one song ever. How would that happen? Like, who's going to make me just listen to one song?
This is a hypothetical question, Ruben.
I see. I will go with. There's a song on the new Tisbury's record called "The Anniversaries." I just can't get out of my mind. They just released it. The record's coming out in the spring, but they released the single. So I'll go with that.
Wow, so you're going with a new song.
Oh yeah, that's all I listen to is new music. So.
But it won't be new in 20 years.
Well, I don't really have a choice in the matter. It's the only song I can listen to. So at least I'll have heard it fewer times than songs that were released, 50 years ago. What would yours be?
My favorite song is Tom Petty "Wildflower," so I'd probably pick that.
Very underrated record.
Yeah, a great record, but the song in general,
Did you ever see Petty?
yeah, a few times.
Good.
It makes me happy.
He's
I like
great.
that song.
He was great.
Okay.
Big Ben Montench fan here.
Let's do
Wow, we actually agree on Tom Petty.
one more.
I saw Tom Petty in the Replacements at the Man way back when, and saw him in our building in the Wells Fargo. I think his last tour. Great.
Scott, love the podcast, gentlemen. Glad to be sharing the seemingly special Eagle season with you. Can Quinyon Mitchell win Defensive Rookie of the Year without an interception if he continues to lock down wide receivers like he did to not so scary Terry last night?
Unfortunately, no. I think he needs at least a couple to put him in the conversation. Guys corners that win that are getting 5, 6, 7 interceptions.
Yeah, I mean, Sauce Gardner won. He had 2, but seemed to have a higher profile.
Yeah. I
think he had 20 pass breakups.
Quinyon's been incredible. And when you look at who he's played, I mean, in the 6 games since the bye week, he's given up 99 yards when he's targeted. I mean, it's incredible. He just doesn't give up play. I think the longest play he's given up during that stretch was a 13-yarder to like Wandale Robinson or something. I mean, he's been so good, but you need the big plays to be considered.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm curious, like how far we've come with like analytics and advanced stats to not need the traditional stats to give a guy an award.
Who's voting? Just a bunch of old guys who.
Yeah, but theoretically, that pool is getting younger and younger.
Yeah, look at the list of voters. I'm like the youngest one.
I don't know.
And I look at that stuff, but I don't know if everyone does.
Yeah. The other thing is like there's not a clear cut like. Jared Verse is the favorite right now, which is kind of a fun time to talk about this because they'll play in LA this weekend. Like Verse has been good, but it's not like he's leading the league in sacks or anything. He's been a solid player. Now the advanced stats are even better on him too, so it might work if you're gonna enter this world of advanced stats. All of a sudden, like all right, Verse looks better than his numbers too.
Right.
But I think Quinyon deserves to be in the conversation.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay. Want to wrap this one up?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Joe Douglas got fired. We should mention that. Former Eagles. What was his title here? He had a few.
Yeah, vice president of.
Yeah, personnel.
Football.
Whatever. But yeah, he was Howie's top guy for a while. Went to the Jets. Fired in the middle of the season. Not going well up there at Florham Park.
Yeah, he was kind of a dead man walking, I think. They were going to clean house. Hey, he had some good drafts up there, drafted some good players. Overall, the plans did not come together. He couldn't get the stink off the Jets. Going all in on Aaron Rodgers was a decision, and it hasn't worked. I kind of give him credit for going for it there.
I guess. Yeah. He looks...
I know, but they were in a situation where they had Zach Wilson. They missed on the quarterback, and they're trying to just maximize and go for it, and it has not worked. Wish him the best, though. Good dude.
Good guy.
Yeah. If you have a question for us, that's eagle-eye at NBC,
I'm sorry.
UNI.com. Go ahead.
One other thing I want to mention. I messaged you last night about this. Did you watch that Dallas Texans game?
I did, yeah.
Derek Barnett.
And I did because we talked about it.
Well, it was just for their purposes. Yeah. Derek Barnett had an incredible rep where he had a strip sack. Cowboys lineman recovered it, and then he was stripped, and Derek Barnett recovered the fumble and then ran in for a touchdown. So on the same play, he forced a fumble and recovered a fumble, but it was a different fumble and scored a touchdown. In his last 28 games as an Eagle, he had no fumble recoveries, no forced fumbles, 2 sacks, no touchdowns. And he had a fumble recovery, forced fumble, and a touchdown and a sack on one play.
And not the biggest fumble recovery of his life.
It sure wasn't. 7 years ago, he had a pretty big one. Ran the wrong way, but who cares? But yeah, good for him. He's been playing well for them. Mm-hmm. He's been solid. That's it. I swear that's it.
All right, if you enjoy the Eagle Eye Podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. Thanks to Rivers Casino Philadelphia for having us out, as always, on a Tuesday. For Rube, I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye, presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.